One. All right, everybody. I know you know her face by now. Penny Kelly. I know
Yeah.
you know my face, that's for sure. Uh, I come to you every day in the morning. So we were chatting recently about coronavirus, a little bit about President Trump, politics. Um, she wants to discuss some other things, maybe a little bit about 5G, some frequency generator type things. Crazy times we're living in right now. Why is this happening? Why right now? All kinds of good stuff. I don't even know. Where do you want to start?
I think probably with coronavirus because that's really what everybody is so afraid of, etc. So, there's a couple of things that I would share. First of all, so it is a bioengineered virus. I didn't know that that was coming, and so it's like we have to get to a point where we start to become aware of what's really going on in this world. And yeah, it kicks your butt, but I think the butts need to be kicked at this point in time. So um, the if you're going to deal with a virus, I think the main thing that I really wanted to say is, don't be afraid, and do look at the whole thing as this move into, um, I'm going to call it the energy and the medicine and the perspective of the future. So, have you ever used any frequency generators, Joe, or done anything with frequencies?
No, I mean not to that kind of extent. I know about frequencies and electronics and things, but not like healing or
Okay.
blocking something. Not that kind.
Okay. So, every single bacteria, every single virus is and is composed of a frequency. And that frequency is its electronic signature, its electromagnetic signature. If you zap that with a matching frequency from a frequency generator, you're going to kill it. And so when I heard about the coronavirus, my first reaction was, oh, you know, that's just another one of those SARS or swine flu things. I think a lot of people had that same reaction. And I don't think we have the full story yet. I'm still riding the fence.
I am too.
Are you? Yeah.
Like part of me says it's another hoax like the last ones that never came to anything because there's a huge agenda. Is it the agenda of Trump draining the deep state across the planet? So they're going to have to lock down places. They don't want people rioting and protesting. Is it that? Is it the deep state actually doing this to try to slow him? In other words, I was just talking to my two buddies, John Con and Dave, and I said, we were just talking about this. And I said, there's kind of two scenarios, and that's it. Either this thing is a hoax, but they're treating it as if it's not, and
Right.
whatever's about to happen is about to happen because of that. Or it's not a hoax, and the same thing's going to happen anyways because they're treating it as if it's not a hoax one way or the other. So we're going to get what they want. The question is, are we going to not have our health affected? That's the only issue, in my
Okay.
opinion. It's one or the other. But I'm
Okay.
on the fence too. I'm like, well, I don't know. Deep
Yeah.
down, I still feel like, it's going to blow over. Yeah, they'll pretend it didn't. And there'll be numbers and, again, pictures and video. But like I said initially with everybody, I said, everyone needs to pay attention to your friends, your family, their friends, and their
Right.
family, and just find
Absolutely.
out how many people die of this. Because
Hmm.
if no one knows anybody that dies, no matter what numbers we hear, something's a little fishy here, if you don't
That's
know
right.
anybody.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do know that it was engineered for the Oriental body type, and that they have 15 times more receptors for this kind of virus than, say, whites. I don't know about the black population or Hispanic or any of the others, red, but it is pretty dangerous for Oriental phenotypes, and so that's a problem right there. But I think the whole story is not in yet, and so, and I've learned from working with Dr. Levengood, you don't jump to conclusions before you get to the conclusion. All of the evidence will tell you what is really happening, and that just falls in your lap if you don't presuppose all these other scenarios and then, go off the cliff with them. So, if everybody is a lemming and runs over the side of the cliff, then the problem is going to be that nobody's ready for what's really happening or what's coming behind it, or etc. So I wanted to share this. You know what? I don't even have a picture of it, but in December, I bought a frequency generator, and the whole idea was that I was going to get rid of cold sores. I would get cold sores every time I quit taking lysine and olive leaf. And I just got to the point where I thought, I'm so tired of taking stuff. I just want, to be rid of this cold sore or these cold sores. And so, because for me, it was this massive fever and fatigue and aches and pains and all the nerves firing. It was just a pain in the butt. So I bought this thing, and it was fairly expensive. There are others that are much more expensive, but it was $2,500. And I thought, okay, let's see if it does anything. And it came with some instructions, and it said go through all the general cleanses first to try to clean up. Don't just go for your target frequency. Okay, I go through all the cleanses. I finally get to the point where it's like time to do the cold sore frequency. And there's this whole string of frequencies, and I chicken out. I think, and the other thing, let me say this. I thought there were only two kinds of herpes simplex, one for cold sores and one for genital herpes. And so I was only concerned with cold sores. And I thought that was it, just the two of them. Well, I get the frequency generator, and I discover there's like 23 different sorts or sets of herpes. And so I think when it's time to really target the herpes simplex one, I chicken out. And I think, let me try a different one, maybe a minor one. So I try human herpes virus number 5, and I run it. And it runs for an hour and a half almost. And I thought, that's a long time. Somewhere I think I read in the book that when you first target your target frequency, maybe you should only run it for 3 minutes. So I run it for an hour and a half, and then later remember, oh, whoops, because I didn't feel good the next day. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together. So I run it the second day. Oh my gosh, I went down like a stone. I still didn't put the 2 and 2, put the two things together. I just thought, I'm getting the flu. Everything ached. My throat was just throbbing. All my lymph system was, all the glands were swollen. I hurt everywhere. It hurt to breathe. My back hurt. I had fever. I had chills. My ears were plugging up. My sinuses. I thought, after a couple hours, I thought, you know what? It warns in the book that if you hit the frequency and you have a huge die-off, that you're going to come down with something that feels like the flu. It's called the Herxheimer reaction. And sure enough, I did. And I was down for almost 2 weeks. So, and I could barely breathe. I could barely talk. Oh my gosh. And I know a lot about how to detox the body. I was doing everything, and it just took a while. So I just wanted to share, for those who are afraid of getting the virus, you might want to consider getting a frequency zapper generator of some sort. It doesn't matter who the maker is, as long as they can, generate the frequencies you're after. And when I guess the thing I would say was, don't wait until you have the virus. Start ahead of time and start cleaning up. Everybody has parasites. Everybody has chronic viral infestations. Herpes is only one. Epstein-Barr, there's a whole bunch of others. Rickettsia, there's Bartonella, there's just a bunch of them. Ehrlichia is another one that I had never heard of. But they infest the body, and they don't really have any symptoms. They come into the body and they're like, woohoo, look at this. We have a protected environment and we are going to populate this space. And they do. And they don't really cause a problem. They just suck up a lot of your nutrition. They dump their wastes in your system, and so all of a sudden, if you never had if you never had allergies, all of a sudden you might have allergies to something. And that waste is very irritating. It gets in the skin. And you're trying to eliminate that all over the place. The immune system is busy keeping that down, and so it doesn't have the time, the energy to take care of other things. And so, it really becomes this really slow degenerative process because every body is loaded with parasites, with low-grade bacteria, with chronic viral infestations and stuff like that. So I would say, if you don't want to worry about coronavirus, look at the medicine of the future, which is frequency medicine. You can give yourself the frequency of a homeopathic remedy. They are so powerful. Oh my gosh. You can get rid of cancer. You can zap almost anything. The frequency booklet that I got is like, I'm going to say 65 pages of different frequencies. Very, very interesting. And people have done research to figure out, what kills a strep bacteria, what kills staph, or whatever else you happen to come across. So just be aware that if you get coronavirus and you go to zap that with a frequency generator and you've got other stuff happening that you haven't cleaned up, you're liable to get way sicker than you ought to be. So, and you really ought to know some things about detox. So those are just some of the comments that I would say. Have a heads up. We are moving into a whole new paradigm, and we're moving at warp speed now. And when people say, oh, the world is falling apart, I'm like, no, the world is coming together in a whole new way. And I get really excited about that. And people are just not, we're getting there, but there's not quite enough that I think are seeing the amazing, amazing future that we're heading into. So, just kind of, do something. When we talk about a paradigm change, that paradigm is made up of your government, whatever form of government you have, whatever form of medicine you have, whatever kind of education you have built in your civilization, travel, lifestyles, relationships, child raising, all of those things. So we're in the middle, we're not even in the middle, we're at the beginning of that paradigm change. And I think we have a lot of change to look forward to. But we have to embrace that. And I think if we do, we can get excited instead of be afraid. So that's basically all I wanted to say.
So you use that thing for one day for like an hour, and then you were sick for 2 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I used it for 2 days.
Okay.
And the directions say, if you hit the frequency you were after and it causes a huge die-off, then keep using the frequency until you have no more reaction, which I discovered takes about 5 days. But in the meantime, you're having to do a serious amount of detox. So, you have to know some detox techniques or tricks, etc. Fasting is one, ton of water is another, how to use homeopathic remedies is another, soaking your feet, doing coffee enemas, soaking in a salt and soda bath, all those kinds of things will help you get back on your feet quickly. But
So the question is, how do you feel after the side or the 2 week thing is gone, like, and you're back to normal now? How do you feel versus, 3 or 4 weeks ago before you even did it?
Okay. Yeah. Now, number one, what I've noticed is that there's a little more clarity. I don't think we realize when we're losing clarity in terms of consciousness. So it's a little more of that. But the bigger thing that I was even more excited about is that for years I had these little red spots, and I still have a few, but they have greatly reduced, and some of them are healing. Most of them are healed or are healing,
And
and
that's
they're
just recently. That's just happened
yeah,
recently.
that's within the last 2 weeks. I actually started using the thing a month ago, and I started noticing that as I cleaned up the various parasite, and then I went to general cleanses. So I went from general parasite to general cleanse to my target. And what it turned out was actually the human herpes virus number 5 is one of the most widespread of all the herpes bacteria or herpes virus forms, and it's in almost everybody. It's called cytomegalovirus, and I did not know that. And when I went after that, it was like, holy cow.
Where did you get this thing from?
I
The,
got it
the,
from Bioelectrics for Health. Um, and it's a BCX Ultra is the one I have. Somebody else I know is getting something from Germany. Somebody else I know is getting something. It's a Rife generator.
what was yours called?
Mine is called BCX Ultra. So they
Oh, there it is.
are.
Okay.
I think it's important. Nellie has used them to fix headaches. A massive migraine, and after half an hour, it's like, oh, it's all over. Oh, I forgot about it. Yeah, a headache is gone. It's like, oh, it worked. Okay. So pain, it handles pain. It does all kinds of things. So, and that I think is where we wanna go. My comments about 5G, a lot of people have written, what do you think about 5G? And I'm like, I don't think about it. I have it here in my house. I have a bioharmonizer, which I don't know if we talked about that
We
before or
did.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going. I haven't had any bad effects, but when I think about 5G, if I just eliminate all of the hype and all of the the fear stuff, it's like, okay, every single one of us went through, well, most of us went through high school science and learned that, cells divide, and we watched maybe little movies of that, etc. That cellular division happens based on frequency modulation within the body, or the action of frequencies in the body, the action of plasma fields. And they're intelligent and they're electromagnetic. So we all know that the body is an electric universe. That's pretty much been accepted for a long, long time. Chemists know that chemistry follows frequency. So when there's a change in the electromagnetic fields, that's when the chemical action happens. Years ago, I was putting in a garden, and I thought, let me get a soil test and see what's happening. So I get the soil test, comes back from the extension office and says, oh, your soil has everything it needs. Everything is perfect. I'm like, okay, fine. So I plan. And we had all kinds of difficulties that year, just one thing after the next. So the next year I get another soil test, and I go to a different company for the soil test. I go to an outside one that is not the Michigan Agricultural Extension Cooperative Office or whatever it is. And I'm talking to the guy who does these tests, these soil tests, and I said to him, we did a soil test last year. They said everything was there. Everything was in the soil. And then we had a terrible year. Why? And he said, because there's no electricity moving. When all the electricity is neutral, there's not going to be any chemical transactions. And it was like the light went on, and I thought, oh my, okay. So that same principle holds true in the body. You can have all the stuff in there, but if there's no electricity moving through the body, then you don't have any transactions happening. And that's one of the things that I think we have to begin to understand, is that the body is an electric universe. And the muscles, if you listen to Jerry Tennant, he talks about the muscles as big battery packs. He's right on. A Kundalini experience is a massive electromagnetic event in the body in which charge moves through and just transforms every single energy plexus in the body. All of those things make it really obvious that we are needing to like shift just a little bit to, what's happening electrically, what's happening with the frequencies, what's happening with the charges. You have to have an imbalance of charges in the body in order to have some kind of activity happening, because everything is going to tend to push toward neutral. And if it can't, then you've got a continuous flow of energy that's going to move through. So pH in the body is a measurement of your electrical conductivity. If you're too acid, there's nothing happening. If you're too alkaline, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening, and it's happening so fast that the chemicals hardly have time to really interact and build anything. So it has to be just right. It's a Goldilocks kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It can't be too hot or too cold. It has to be just right. So that whole business of understanding how to think of the body is, I think, a major thing when we come to coronavirus and 5G. Now, let me go back to 5G. Here's the scenario I hear. Oh, they're putting it on all the posts or all the street lights or all the street signs or whatever, and they're going to give off frequencies, and they're going to do this, and it's going to kill us all. It's going to modify our thinking. And, a couple of times I've been really disappointed with the world, and I'll think, my God, I hope they get that stupid 5G up and running and modify the thinking of these people or these various areas. Now, I'm not trying to cause trouble here, but with that kind of thinking. But if you turn the fear around and you say, if we are an electric universe and they put in a 5G system, couldn't I go stand within 5 feet of that post and maybe punch in a few numbers and get it to send me a healing frequency? So that now I don't have to worry about taking pills, about doing surgery, about doing drugs, about any of that stuff. Just go and restore my frequencies, which is what you can do. That's what we're heading into. There's already been some of that done, but it's not public. So, what if 5G could be used for good?
Very well could.
Yeah, why not? Why aren't we being more creative? Every single technology that comes out that is useful or powerful in any way, shape, or form can be used for good or for ill. Why not think about what's the good? How do we do this? What if somebody who had MS was missing some frequencies in their brain, and they could go stand by the lamppost and get a treatment from this 5G system that supplies the missing frequencies, and they no longer have MS, or they no longer have Parkinson's, or. We aren't thinking broadly enough. We're just being like, like when you're trying to catch chickens. They run in every direction and squawk at the top of their lungs and zigzag all over the place. And that's what's happening with us, because we're missing information. really. I think that's the basis of it all. We're missing information about how we really are as a body and how we could restructure our world. It's going to be restructured with or without us. So how about we do it with?
Yeah, go with the flow.
Yeah, yeah. You can't find out the possibilities of something unless you're willing to take a little bit of risk. And without that risk, you're just going to end up, um, I mean, it has to be what would you call it, intelligent risk or calculated risk. You can't just jump in and say, wow, well, let's see what happens, even though I do that from time to time. You have to be able to have a little bit of knowledge and do some critical thinking and say, well, if this is the case and this is the case, for instance, just the piece about like when I was studying naturopathic medicine, one of the things that was drilled into us is if you're too acid, you're going to be prone to bacterial infections. If you're too alkaline, you're going to be prone to viral infections. So, and that also was something that Nicholas Gonzalez said over and over. If you are having bacterial infections, then alkalinize. It will not support a bacterial infection. If you are having viral infections, then acidify. That will not support a viral infection. So, years ago, probably 20 years ago, 2003 or 4, I always had an issue with a cyst on my right ovary. And the darn thing exploded, it leaked, and it caused peritonitis. And that was pretty serious. I was all ready to go to the hospital, all ready to have surgery. And I just kept, asking, can I fix this myself? And I was fasting. I was doing the purge, which is a detox procedure. And I caught that peritonitis just in time, severely alkalinized myself, and it went away. It took months to heal completely, but I no longer was under the threat of the infection. It was pretty serious. So I don't recommend that people do that. Don't take that kind of risks. I shouldn't have probably, but I did, and it worked. And so here I am. But the point is that if you know something about how the body works, you can create situations, or you can alter your internal chemistry and electromagnetic balance so that you can have a huge effect on what's going on in the system, what's going on in the body. So,
on that device, how do you actually set the frequency?
most of them are pre-programmed in, but there's a procedure that you go through. You can program almost anything. But I was looking up, I had heard just regarding coronavirus that it was really a piece of it was not bubonic plague, pneumonic plague. And that was coming out of Dave Hodges. And I thought, oh, wow. Okay, so pneumonic plague, I looked up Yersinia pestis, which is what the plague is. And sure enough, that frequency was already programmed in there. Like, oh, okay. So, and you don't typically just do one frequency. You do a range of frequencies in order to get all the mutations. And a couple of them are gonna support your tissue or support detoxing or support. It's a range of frequencies that doesn't just zap the one. It does a whole bunch of good stuff while it's also getting rid of a whole bunch of related kinds of frequencies. And you have to do it enough that you catch the virus in its various stages. For instance, Epstein-Barr virus burrows into tissues. And there's some indication that Epstein-Barr is a version of herpes, human herpes virus, but it burrows into tissues. And so you have to zap the ones that are alive, and then you keep doing it. And so what happens is the ones that are emerging and going through developmental stages, you hit all those frequencies as well. So I think it's really, there's no, other than the fact I went down for like 13 days, and it was a long time to get my voice back. And even then I was struggling with it after a week. But there are no other side effects. You're not, I mean, you buy the machine and it just keeps on producing the frequencies. My own attitude, my own opinion is every household should have one of these. This is a healing tool, a major healing tool. Most of the degeneration going on in the human environment is from chronic infestation of viruses and parasites and flukes and what have you. And every so often people get a severe bacterial infection. Most of those are just gone. So we all have a $1,000 or some $2,000 refrigerator. We all have a car. We all have a stove. We all have, you know, air conditioning. Why not have this tool? It's well worth it.
It makes sense. Yeah, I was looking at it. I'm like, well, I see plugs. Does it like plug into a computer or like?
No, that little box you see is actually the computer. You plug into that, and you can plug in plasma ray tubes. You can plug in foot plates. You can plug in handheld cylinders. You can plug in a mat if you have arthritis and lay on the mat. I think there's a tool that's called far infrared, FIR. And so you can get that. That's extra. So, you know, it ends up being something that is really, it can be used in a number of different ways. It also comes with these things that you can stick on your skin. I haven't used those yet, but let's say you have a problem in the heel. It's really hard to, you know, you can't really put a cylinder on that. So you put these sticky pads on the heel, and it generates the frequency and gets it right into that area without the awkwardness of a plasma ray tube or a cylinder, etc. So yeah, so I think the big thing in terms of understanding, one of the things I wanted to share is when I first looked at when I first heard about coronavirus, I was doing one of my monthly look-see kinds of things. And I think it was January. And it was like, oh, this coronavirus is getting worse. February, oh, it's getting worse. March, oh my gosh. April, still spreading. May, ho-hum. And I thought, what? What happened? Okay, I don't know what happened.
Ho-hum as in just no more news, gone?
Yeah, like who cares?
Wow.
So I noted that and thought, okay, there's a couple reasons why that could be so. First reason would be that the virus has mutated so much that it's no longer coronavirus. It's something else entirely. So when I'm asking what's the coronavirus doing, it's not doing anything because it has mutated right out of its own field of form. So that's one possibility. The second is that they get it under control and it's okay. And it's not bothering too many people. And the third possibility is that something has happened that is so massively distracting that we don't care what's happening with coronavirus. You know, it's just like everybody's riveted in some other direction.
Well, Dick Algar, you know him as a remote viewer. They've had quite a bit of insight on some of this stuff with the coronavirus and they did a session a while back, and I just posted a picture of it on my video from I think this morning. But it's got a guy standing at a podium, and he's addressing a large crowd of people. There's big screen TVs. They're broadcasting it live. The whole world can see this broadcast. And it says something like, he's let me I think I still have it in my email.
Okay.
That way I can actually read it.
All right.
Word for word kind of a thing. Okay. So, man, leader, speaks, maybe Trump. Loud voice, people look for leadership, look for answers. It's on big screens, it's broadcast worldwide. People, they want to be reassured. They are frightened, uneasy, angry, but more afraid than angry. They are desperate. He's scripted. He knows it's a lie. Why the live crowd? Buying time against trust. Do it live because real people equals more trust, better connection. I had asked him, man, is this coronavirus, you think? He goes, no. He says, that whole session was basically like the death of a dollar, like some kind of black swan event or something that really hurts the dollar. And I thought, well, could it be something, again, China shutting down, all this stuff shutting down, now all of a sudden we're going to get affected potentially hugely economically. I mean, the whole world could be, which could lead to the death of the dollar. So it could be attached. He goes, yeah, that's possible. But the event itself wasn't coronavirus. So I'm wondering if your third scenario is like this, where we don't even care about the damn virus. What the hell just happened? The Dow Jones just dropped 50%. The dollar just got cut in half. Cryptocurrencies are, 5 times higher. God knows what. And the average, most of us wouldn't be upset about that. The cryptocurrencies, 99% of the planet who doesn't have them would be upset about their dollar getting crushed or whatever just happened. So I'm not real sure. They're not real sure either, but it does look like this was not a virus thing. This was he knows he's scripted. I'm lying right now, but I have to do this and I've got to say this. And he says it looks like it might be Trump. And usually when Dick says that, he's pretty accurate with the guys he draws and figures he sees. So I would say it's probably Trump.
Wow. Yeah, I was like, okay, wow, something is coming, major something. I have hope that the financial system would hold together till the end of the year. I'm not sure that it's going to. Lots and lots of, I'm going to call it signs or signals that say that it isn't going to. And then I think, well, for those who don't know, they might not figure it out until almost the end of the year. But for those who are watching, we're going, oh my. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it's over way before the general population even starts to wake up. And I find that so hard to deal with, that people are not engaged in the world that we're creating, because we're creating this world. This reality system is our creation. And to have so many people out to lunch is really difficult. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I did see, no, I don't know where I put that. I did see that there was a, like some sort of financial boost in the cryptos in May at that same time that I saw the ho-hum was like, okay, cryptos were like shooting up. And there was an announcement that we almost have a, I'm not sure what you call it, a platform, a retail trade platform, but there was hardly any retail trade going on. So, well,
hold on, say that again.
So this was May.
Mainly the retail trade thing. What was that?
The platform for retail trade, the platform that would allow everybody to use crypto, was being announced that it was almost ready. And I was like, almost? What good is that? But it was, it gave people something to hang on to. And I thought that was important at that time. So.
So it's almost like you could say the current economic system, financial system has a major blowout, major problem. People are panicked, and the solution is crypto, but we're not ready yet. So hold on, let us build this
That's
platform.
it.
We're almost there. We're almost there. And once we get it, you guys will be able to do your stuff again, and
Right,
like that.
right. That, yeah, like that. And a lot of people were like throwing their hands up in the air, and they were just like, I don't know what to do. Um, Another little thing that has, this is a question that has come up over and over again. I don't know how many people really understand that we have two governments, two sets of government in the US. One is the Trump government, and that's what I'll call the legitimate government. Then we have the cabal, and they have a fair number of people who are devoted to that still. And they have their, they're involved in many, many places, and they still have a lot of pull. And the question that I've had over and over is, did the cabal trigger that coronavirus thing in an effort to start a war between the US and China, which then backfires? And then the result is that trade drops off to almost nothing. And we wake up and say, holy cow, this whole globalist idea that China is going to support us with all their goods and they're going to make everything, and we're going to depend on them. That's probably not a good idea. We need to grow our own food. We need to manufacture our own clothing. We need to make our own machinery, our own pills and medicines, etc. We need to make our own technology and cell phones. And that's going to boost the whole, what I call it, remanufacturization that's going on, that Trump is trying to get going. And that's probably a good thing,
But
because
there's probably pain in the middle of that because we don't have the infrastructure there now to just flip a switch. So there's
that's
probably
right.
gonna be some pain in between, right?
Yes. Yes. And I just don't see any way around that pain because of the number of people who aren't paying attention. And so we end up in this place where the whole, if the cabal, let me go back to what I started to say, if they triggered that, hoping to start a war, and it backfired and results in a boost to all the stuff, to everybody saying, we need to make sure we can take care of ourselves, period. That's just all there is to it. Then their whole system becomes even weaker, and that's on the good side. We can't have a good world if it's full of corruption. We can't. You can't have honorable dealings when people are doing some of the stuff that they're doing behind the scenes, and the money laundering and the skimming and the slavery and the sex stuff, all of that. That doesn't make for a good world.
Right.
And the people that's happening to, we might not know them and we might not see what's actually happening, but because of the nature of consciousness, that does affect us. It is a world, it's just a world in which that kind of oneness is not obvious, but it's still operational. And until you wake up to some of the more advanced science that's out there, you wouldn't be able to say, you'd kind of poo-poo. It's like, well, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
It is your problem. It's everybody's problem. So,
Interesting.
yeah. Yeah, so in terms of, one of the things I've asked some of my students, what kind of world would you like to live in? What would you like to see happening? Um, what sort of financial system, what sort of medical system, what kind of food system, what kind of relationships, what kind of work do you want to be doing? Work being different from jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to think about those things. And I think the whole coronavirus issue is is going to be a deepening of our thinking along those lines, and that's a good thing. It's a part of the waking up process.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look in history, back at history, people didn't just like wake up or decide, oh, I think I want to overthrow the government today just because. They were all fast asleep. Something major happened that
Yeah,
affected them personally right then and there, and by chance, it affected everybody else the same.
that's right.
Then they said, okay, we need to do something. Right
That's right.
now, those of us paying attention, we're the few. So we're trying to tell people, hey,
Yeah,
just deaf ears, deaf ears, deaf ears, until, oh
yeah,
crap, my bank account. Oh crap, something just happened in the stock market. Oh crap. And if it's happening across the
yeah,
board, sounds like, if it's May that you thought you saw this, I
yeah.
guess it very well could be. I don't know. And, one
It's
side of me says, all right, cryptos, let's go. Yeah, May, is she going to be right? This will be great if she is.
yeah.
But what does that mean for everything else? Not so great.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's really an important point. As I went back to study history and realized that it was an abortion. History has just been totally rewritten to suit who's ever in power, whoever
That's
is.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And as I was realizing that, I'm studying the French Revolution, and then before that, some of the revolutions, the Lutheran Revolution. Um, every time that happens, the world is in uproar, and there's all this good stuff that comes out of that. And it's come to me now that that's the only
Well, did I lose you?
control of the money, et cetera, et cetera. And whoops, hang on, let me open a door here.
Okay.
I'm cut off from my internet connection here.
Oh,
So, okay. Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So what happens is that somebody gets in power, and maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years they're in power, and they want stability, and they prevent change from happening. And so this anger builds up. Anger is change energy that hasn't been allowed to go anywhere. And that anger builds up because of all the changes that have not been allowed to occur. And then all of a sudden there's an explosion, and change comes out of everywhere, out of the woodwork, out of every corner, and people are trying all kinds of things, and it's interesting. It's scary because of the amount of change. There's usually a die-off of some sort, and then voila, we're in a whole new world. We're in a whole new paradigm. So
Yeah, we're just trying to make sure we're not the ones that die off.
right.
that's
Right.
that's goal number one.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really important. Your responsibility is to yourself, and to keep yourself healthy. Nobody else is going to do your health for you. Nobody else is going to do your perception. Nobody else is going to do your consciousness. It's you. Each one of us has to be responsible. So I've told people who are awake, for God's sake, take good care of yourself. You're going to be needed. You are needed. And we'll see who actually comes through and who lasts, um, and what sorts of contribution or what sorts of oompa they can add to the mix. And that's as important as the people who have the ideas or the new inventions or the new information. There has to be an audience and a group of people who recognize that everything that exists because of recognition, period. Everybody has to have recognition. Without it, you die. It's just that simple. So when nobody was paying attention to horse-drawn wagons anymore, they sort of died out. They're a relic now. You see them here and there but it's not, everybody's got cars instead of a horse-drawn wagon or a buggy.
Right,
And
mules.
that's
We're
our,
not running around with mules, carrying our stuff.
yeah, right. Yeah. And there are places where a car in the mountains is maybe not practical.
Sure. Yeah.
A mule is still good. So a mule is old technology, but we as a population are fascinated by new technology. And I think we're headed, this is my own, what I see is we're headed toward becoming a space-based civilization. And we have to implement some new technologies and new forms of energy and new understandings of physics and the forces that are available to us
Mm-hmm.
if we're going to get off the planet.
Yeah. I've always had a little concern. I've heard other people talk about this too. Like when we advance so fast technologically, but we don't advance spiritually,
Oh,
that could be a recipe for disaster.
yeah,
We don't care about other people. We don't have empathy or whatever, all
right.
these things that we might have if we were more spiritual beings. We may
Yeah,
not want to create something that's devastating to the world.
yeah,
And, we get this technology and this information and we just do stuff and we leave the
yeah,
spiritual side behind. I sometimes wish that mankind spent a little more time, educating himself a little more spiritually rather than worrying about, always technology. Because that's how we always are. It's just technology, new TV, new car, new this, new that.
yeah.
It's like spirituality. What are you talking about? You like going to church? No,
Well,
not that.
no, it's not about church, that's for sure. I think one of the things I've seen, this was with the robes, um, uh, let me say something else about the robes too. But one of the things I've seen with the robes was that the people who survived were the people with consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The people who did not survive were the people who just didn't care, didn't want to look, didn't want to get off the couch.
Yep.
So, and on that note, speaking of the robes, there was going back to the whole question, is it a hoax? Is it a joke? It's not a joke when somebody you love dies. It's not a joke, when a whole population or a whole country shuts down. But back when I was with the robes, and I wrote about it very briefly because I didn't want to say a whole lot, they said there will come a point in time when you will not be able to get into a theater, a restaurant, a mall, a shopping mall, a grocery store, a public place of any kind, unless you can prove that you are healthy.
Mm.
And I saw people wearing masks, and my reaction at that time was, that's never going to happen. Nobody's going to make us wear a mask or tell us we can't go in a store. And now what I see is like, oh wow,
It could
that's
be the store owners that say, just like the sign, no shoes, no shirt, no service, no shoes, no shirt, no mask,
yeah,
no service. They
right,
don't let you in. May not even be
yeah,
the government. It's just because of
right,
hysteria or whatever. People, I don't want to get sick, and you get sick, and all my products, you're coughing on my products.
that's
People,
right,
that's the new rule. That's it. No, you can't come in unless you got masks on
yeah,
and gloves.
yeah, that's right. Years ago, I think it was back in the 90s, maybe the early 2000s, 2001, maybe two. I saw this report from somebody, and I don't remember who, but it was a financial group, and they had gone on tour to China, and they came back and they said, China has declared war on the US, and this is the war. The first year they're going to take over this, and I think it was steel, the production of steel or something like that. And the next year they're going to take on, or they're going to get control of some other kind of metal production. And the next year they're going to take over the underwear, the fiber and fabric mills. They're going to produce fabric, and then I think the next year was underwear. And I remember the underwear thinking, what? And then they're going to take over the production of juice, and then of telephones. And I remembered the juice because we were growing apples for a big juice harvest, and we get to harvest and we couldn't sell the juice. We couldn't sell the apples because China had come in and dumped a huge amount of juice on the market. And so our set and all that effort was wasted.
Mm.
And then, so there was a 10-year plan and there was a different focus every year. And I remember reading that and thinking, effectively, we are just going to be, extra fluff in the dryer if that happens, if they manage to get control of each one of those markets. So here we are in 2020, and we're realizing that everything we have comes out of China, and we're between a rock and a hard place, and that's something that I think we're going to have to look at pretty deeply without animosity toward China. How are we going to help them get back on their feet? Are we going to help them get back on their feet? At what point do we have the consciousness that says, okay, guys, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. And we stop this silliness called war. There's a few people that are greedy and they want control and they want to run things. And that is pretty obvious. But the great majority of people just want to live in a place of love and joy and health,
Mm-hmm.
and etc. They're not interested in controlling the world. So, and the cabal and the current events are really forcing us to look at that. So in that sense, it's good. So.
Okay. Was there anything else you wanted to discuss that we didn't talk about?
I think a couple things that I just want to mention. In the same vein that 5G could have a good side if we were creative enough in our thinking, if we were expansive enough, in that same way, I think we're going to have to look at the changes that are coming and ask ourselves, we are going to end up with a new world order. It might not be the new world order of George Bush or the Clintons or Obama or any of those people, or Soros, etc., or even the Rothschilds. But we are coming into a new world, and that order is something that I think we need to take responsibility for and let ourselves get creative with that. If we don't do that, it's going to be a world that isn't worth living in. So, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't let people get you all stirred up and get your panties in a twist kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess, that's probably it.
Okay. Oh, well, I know one thing we could talk about real quick. Actually, I just thought about it. We talked last year about possibly doing a little getaway thing at your place out there in maybe August of this year. But with the Corona thing and all that, I almost feel like we ought to wait till June before we have a real serious conversation.
I think so.
Because maybe if it is bogus by then, no, it's nothing. Everything's fine in America. And okay, well, maybe we'll go hang out at Penny Kelly's and
there you go.
Whatever. Have a good time over there in August.
Yeah. Come on, sit around the fire and tell stories or roast marshmallows or do whatever. But I think that's wise because we don't know where it's going to go and how it's going to unfold. I have a friend, a very good friend, who's called me the other day, and he got a call from one of his people. There's two people that he goes to for looks at the future, and I'm one of them. And the other one is a man who lives in New York, and he called and he said, hey, I got a call from Pierre, and Pierre says, hey, what's Penny seeing in terms of this coronavirus? And I said, it's not good. It is definitely not good. We still have some corners that we have to turn yet. But he said, all of my all of my messengers and teachers and guides are saying the same thing. This is not this is gonna take out a big chunk of population. It's not gonna be, and it's not a hoax, and it's not a slam dunk to get rid of it. It's just gonna keep popping up all over the next 5 years. And I was like, oh, I was seeing some of that myself. But I was like, no, that can't be right. So now I'm watching to see what actually happens. So the June thing, that's good. Let's talk again and see what happens by June.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I know you're busy. You've got other things to do today.
Yeah.
So glad
Right.
we could get together after a bit of time,
Okay.
seeing what's happened. So it was good to catch up. So
Okay.
until next time, I'll catch you later.
Adios, amigos.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.